Hello, dear committee member and professors. My name is Ngo Thi My Linh, and my advisors are Professor Wang and Professor Chen. And today I would like to present about my research with a title, Assessment of Future Climate Change Impact on Stream Flow and Groundwater by Hydrological Modeling in the Choushui River Alluvial Fan. And as far as you know, the diverse impact of climate change on a growing ecosystem require comprehensive modeling capacity between the surface water and groundwater. Therefore, this study is going to solve this problem. Looking at the schematics of hydrological cycle, it estimates the surface runoff based on the water balance equation and the infiltration based on the curve number method, which is based on the soil permeability, the land use time, and the soil water condition. When soil content exceeds the fuel capacity, the water infiltration will deliver it to the stream through the lateral flow or further seep into the shallow aquifer, and groundwater portion is discharged into the stream through groundwater flow or further lead into the deep aquifer. So first of all, I want to introduce a little bit about the background. With the interaction between the groundwater and surface water is an important aspect of the water cycle, and management or use of them often impact the viability and temporal pattern of another. Besides, the assessment on the impact of climate change on groundwater reaches is a challenge in hydrological research because the substantial depth still remain particularly in arid and semi-arid region. So this research it tries to express the soil and water assessment tool is the physical basis to semi-distributed catchment scale hydrological model. It simulates the surface runoff and groundwater dynamic and management practice or climate change on water quantity at different geographical location and scale. And we are trying using the mud flow model with the purpose to improve the solution of unconfined groundwater flow problem at the subroutine of SWOT model to simulate the groundwater flow processes and all the associated source and sink on the time step. The motivation in this study is thus to apply the coupled SWOT and mud flow model to estimate the stream discharge, the groundwater reaches, and the water exchange between the surface water and groundwater in the Choushui River Alluvial Fan. And for further comprehensive strategy, this research assesses the distribution and proportion of recharge area and impact of climate change scenarios influence on groundwater recharge in the future. About the study area in Choushui River Alluvial Fan, and which is located in Taiwan. To set up the SWOT and mud flow model, we using the Q-SWOT and the mud flow NWT as the routing, and to linking the two models, we use Q-SWOT mud. And looking at the table 1, it is the data source used for coupling the two models. And the first is the model, the second is the data time, and the next is the frequency and resolution of each data, and final is the source of each material. We can take a look. About the methodology, looking at the green arrow, is the objectives in this research. We try to employ the topography and stream network as an input data with the purpose to set up the DEM delineation, the stream network, decide the inlet and outlet, and after that we can calculate how many sub-basins that we have. We can see in whole the water sheet, we can separate many small sub-basins by the outlet. And after that, we also consider more the land use and soil map as an input data to formulate the hydrologic response unit. And here is the distribution and proportion of each soil type and the land use after we are reclassification by hydrologic response unit. And moreover, we also separate the pre-slope pane. Follow the increased rate of water infiltration with the variation in the use of contour plan system. It is the holistic landscape and approach to manage water and capture the rainfall on water sheet, and it suggests that even though the gentle slope reduction in surface runoff, The rainwater leads to greater capture and deeper percolation of water into the soil. What is the hydrological treatment unit? We can see in whole the water system we have many small spacing. For instance, in spacing stick, we have different kind of land use, soil, and slope characteristics, and with its material they connect together. We formulate each hydrological treatment unit. So finally, in whole the water system, it summarized by more than 2,600 SRU. And besides, we also consider one of the important aspects of the water cycle is the weather pattern, including the precipitation and temperature as an input data. And we can see in here is the weather data processing, and here is the framework of the weather database. And we use the climate data, including 83 crystal from 1989 to 100. And we have available data of precipitation and temperature, and we use the generator to simulate the humidity, wind speed, and solar radiation. And after that, we can manage the weather station and the weather database by Microsoft Access and for statistical performance of the weather database. And here is the location of 83 crystal weather data, and it have a daily data over 100 years in each point, and its distribution in whole year, and it's provided by the Taiwan Climate Change Projection Information Knowledge Platform, and we are selected to accommodate the future climatic condition. And after that, the SWOT model can be run. And we can see here is the command circle of SRU and the spacing command. And after we are enter the SRU and spacing command loop, it can read and generate the precipitation and temperature. And after that, it can use the generator to simulate the solar radiation, wind speed, and humidity, and compute the soil temperature. If the rainfall is larger than 0, satisfy this condition, it can compute the surface runoff and infiltration. If the surface runoff is larger than 0, it will continuously to compute the bitrate and transmission routes. And final is the compute soil water routing, evapotranspiration, and another pattern. But if not satisfy this condition, it could directly compute the soil water routing or another pattern. And finally, it can exit the SRU and spacing command loop. And after that, we also need to check in the model performance for the model more precisely compared with the observation. And we try to use the stream discharge of with the observation data to check in the model performance. We can see in this picture is either bridge, and here is the water gauging station, and including the Jiangyun, Zhizhou, Zhijiang, Tuku, Beigang. And meanwhile, we use the Jiangyun bridge at an inlet of the Choushui River. And for this 4 station, we'll use chosen for checking the model performance. And the SWOT software will have a responsibility to enable sensitivity analysis, calibration, validation, and take a look at the uncertainty of the model. And after that, we can depend on the sequential uncertainty fitting. Is spread to assess the sensitive parameter is measured using the t-state value, where the value is more sensitivity for larger in absolute t-state value. What is the t-state? The t-state is regression coefficient of parameter divided by its standard error, and it divided by 2 aspects. The first is the global sensitivity analysis. It means all the parameters will change at the same time. Another is the local sensitivity analysis. It's only allowing the single change in input parameter, and other parameter will keep as a constant. And after that, we can see the result. Here is the table of initial ranked and calibrated value, and we also try to summarize the sensitivity analysis on the input parameter for the SWOT model. And the first column is the SWOT input parameter, and here is the description for the data. And here is the local sensitivity t-state and global sensitivity t-state, including the t-state and the p-value, with the presumption that both local and global sensitivity procedure provide a good sensitivity input parameter. If their value is near to 0, we can see the red color of the number. So in here, it have a curved number method, and the available water capacity of the soil layer, moist bulk density, and groundwater delay is the most parameter sensitivity and control the surface runoff. And in this column, it's either initial rated and calibrated value in the upstream and the downstream. And this value will have more improved the value is more closely with the observation data, and it's better than the initial rated. So after we have an output data, we can calibrate and validate. We can see the result. Here is the observed and the past stimulated stream flow in the Zizang grid during calibration from 1989 to 1994 and validation from 1995 to 2000. And we can see the correlation between the precipitation and observed data and simulated data stream flow. And moreover, we also can take a look at the statistical performance in this table during the calibration and validation with the Pearson correlation coefficient, root mean square error or square percent bias, and not supply efficiency coefficient. And with this result, it shows that the compute stream flow will fit with the observed value. And similarly, we also try to check the model performance of the stream flow on the downstream. And we also saw the correlation between the precipitation, simulated data, and observed data. And we are calibrate during the baseline because we have enough the data from 2005 to 2011 and validate from 2012 to 2017. And we see this table, the statistical performance during calibration and validation with the coefficient efficiency and the error or R square or PPS and NSE. And the result also show the stream flow simulation have a good correlation compared with the observation data. And since we try to assess the stream flow in whole water sheet, therefore we will also try to check in the model performance in Pegang River, including the upstream and the downstream. And here is the upstream of the Pegang into who, and during the baseline calibration and validation, and the table for the statistical performance during the calibration and validation with the coefficient or MSE or square PPS and not supply efficiency coefficient. It also shows that the stream flow estimation are also satisfactory compared with the observed value. And similarly, we also try to calibrate and validate another downstream of Pegang River, and we can see the table for the during calibration and validation. And with this kind of value and result, it also show the statistical performance demonstrate that well correlation between the two series value. And after we have a result of the stream flow, and it will continuously to percolation, and for more improve the in unconfined shallow aquifer, we try to couple it with the mud flow model. And to set up the mud flow model, we can see the 3D. It here have a layer depth of the elevation, and here is the boundary condition, and in this side is the coastal area. We try to set up the specified head boundary. It's where head along with the boundary. It means if we set at a no value, and here is this side is the Newman condition where either derivative of head cross to the boundary is 0, and in this side we have a foothill. So we set up the Choushui condition since the gradient at the difference come from the source water of the hills and the boundary. And moreover, we also try to employ the DEM hydraulic parameter and storativity, riverbed conductance, and layer depth as an input data. And here is the storativity and hydraulic conductivity, and we try to interpolation by the quickie method. However, unfortunately, we just have some less point observation data, so it will have a lot of the uncertainty. That's why we need to calibrate these two parameters. And the time step periods we run from 1989 to 2025. And the first 11 years we have been the initial head for calibrated period. And the next 5 years is calibration, and the next 5 years for validation. And after that, the model can be run, and we need to check in the model performance by the groundwater head and using the past pallets for automatically calibration and using the pumping for manual. And here you can see that the pink color is the observation well. It includes the 62 well, and we need to check in the model performance, and we use the past pilot for automatic calibrate the parameter and utilize to adjust the pumping. And after we are calibration validation, let's see the result. And here is the distribution of the storativity and the hydraulic conductivity after we are calibrated. And this automatic calibrated result by past pilot method is also finding the optimal value of the parameter is more closely with the observation head. And here is the visualization of the proximity of the observed and simulated head in shallow aquifer by calibrated transient mud flow model. And in here we can see the groundwater head is moving follow time step and from the east to the west. And moreover, we also can take a look the statistical for the calibrated mud flow performance and the correlation between the simulated value and observed value during the calibration from 2005 to 2011 with the mean absolute error, root mean square error, and mass supply efficiency coefficient. And with this result, we also can say that the modified calibrated mud flow model also satisfactory and suitable for coupling this watt into transient mode. And similarly, we also use for validation period, and we also see the correlation between the simulated value and observed value with the small error and high efficiency coefficient. We are confident in calibration, and it will enhanced by validation. And the result of the SWOT and mud flow, we can continuously take a look at the coupled model performance. And here we can see the picture. This is the water exchange between the stream and the groundwater flow. And the results show that the amount of the water, the groundwater flow to the stream is lower than the seepage from the stream to aquifer. However, it has some drier. The groundwater flow to the stream is higher than the water seepage from the stream to the aquifer. So after that, we also can estimation the groundwater recharge. Here is the spatial annual recharge rate in whole year, and with the various kind of color, it is show the groundwater recharge, the millimeter per year, and the red color is larger than 500 millimeter per year. And the black boundary is either sensitive recharge by CGS. And we try to comparison between this study and the CGS boundary. We saw that the recharge mainly occur in the top fan, and it catching up some potential high recharge location with the previously delineated sensitive area for groundwater recharge by CGS. And at the same time, we also try to comparison with change in 2013. He tried to use the Doratis method to assess the vulnerability, and the rating is calculated using the maximum estimation probability approach. it means the high level. It is more, the recharge area is more sensitive and have a potential, have a high recharge compared with the other. So we are compared the two. We also can say that it also catching up some potential high recharge location with the previously delineated sensitive area by 10. And moreover, we also can see here is the specific result for groundwater recharge volume and the recharge rate. We can see the unit. And this study compared with the other research is also not conflict. Like according to Wang, he estimated that it's approximately 800 to 1.2 billion cubic meter per year. And or according to CGS, they also estimate that it's nearly 1.3 billion per year. And after we have an auditator, we try to assess the climate change impact to the groundwater by the global circulation model data set for the climate risk assessment. So what is the climate change? According to the United Nations, the climate change is referred to the long-term shift in temperature and the weather pattern. These changes may be natural. However, since the last several decades, the human activity has been the main driver, primarily due to the burning fossil fuel to power the factory or car, and it will produce the heat transmitting gas. And we can see in this picture, it's either global raw data resolution, and we try to downscale the data very finer, increase the resolution 5 km by the binary interpolation method. And finally, we can see the we also across the representative concentration pathway. And after that, we can prediction the data. And here is the result for the impact rate for the 4 scenarios. Groundwater recharge again with the baseline quantity, and during the impact rate of the scenario is determined during the near term, mid-term, and the long term is as a percentage by dividing by the effect amount of the baseline quantity. And with each scenario, we can see in the horizontal and the impact rate in the vertical. And this one will show the minimum, and here is the maximum. Here is the first quartile, and here the second quartile, or we can say it is median, and here is the third quartile. And this mark will show is a higher or lower than the average. So it's either mean. And for more detail, we can see, take a look at this table. It's either impact rate, the percentage of the pathway against with the baseline in each stake, and with each scenario we can see the maximum and the minimum. And it's also adapt with the current emission of the pathway, like the attempt to reduce the emission, energy generation, new technology, transport, or temperature, sea level, or extreme weather. And after that, the signal associated with the climate change predominate the period variability, and the result is more prominent the pattern of greater or lowest recharge concentrate. And we can provide for stakeholder or decision maker to manage the water resource. Or we also can try to comparison between the moving average and newer groundwater recharge volume. And here is the OCB 2.6 and 4.5, and the units either a cubic meter per year for groundwater recharge. And here is the baseline, and the near term compared with the baseline, we can see that it's a decrease, and after that in the midterm it will increase a little bit in the middle and decrease again, and in the long term it's in the beginning it will decrease, but after that it will have a potential to increase. Similarly, we also see the moving average of a newer groundwater recharge of RCB 6.0 and 8.5, and the first near-term period also decrease, but after that it will have a potential to increase again. However, in the midterm it will decrease, and finally in the beginning it will very deep decrease, but in the end of the 2100 it will increase again. And here is the comparison of the groundwater recharge, the cubic meter per year. I try to represent this the diagram in more detail. And in the near term, midterm, and the long term, we also can see the groundwater recharge is a lower or higher compared with the average. So this mark will show us the detailed result of the groundwater recharge volume. And finally, we have some conclusion. So both models, SWOT and flow simulated well fit the temporal pattern of stream flow and groundwater head at the hydrological station during the calibration and validation period. And this is also prerequisite step to apply the climate change scenario to predict the groundwater recharge in the future. And the second, either during the dry year, the recharge rate seepage from the stream to shallow aquifer were lower than the groundwater recharge to the stream. And the third is the recharge mainly occur in the top fan, and it's also catching up some potential high recharge location with the previously delineated sensitive area for groundwater recharge by 10 and the CGS. And the next is the climate change signal predominate the period variability, and the result also more prominent the pattern of greater recharge constantly depend on its scenario's condition. And the maximum and minimum impact rate of climate change on groundwater recharge in this study from the 2020 until next 80 years were RCB 2.6 or 4.5, 6.0 and 8.5. And this value can provide and help decision maker and stakeholder divide the sustainable water resource strategy. And finally, the SWOT and flow would be a valuable tool for evaluate the wide variety of realistic scenarios in order to determine the most efficiency and workable resource management plan for the replenishing the critical depleted the surface water and groundwater. Okay, thank you so much for your attention. Thank committee member and professor.